Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutants Unleashed is a platforming beat 'em up game available on all major consoles as well as Windows. The game is available on Xbox One and Series platforms, PS4, PS5, Nintendo Switch, as well as Windows, and is a platforming beat 'em up game. Now, did that seem incredibly repetitive to you? Because that's exactly how it felt to play the vast majority of this game. While there was nothing inherently wrong with the game, there was very little about it to really capture and keep the player's attention. I don't want to come across too harsh on the game. It actually doesn't do a lot wrong, but it doesn't do a lot amazingly well either. I know this can be one of the worst things to say about a game, but it's incredibly average. As a beat 'em up, the game played okay. It had a lot of the standard abilities you might think of, from basic attacks and combos to air attacks and special moves. There was a surprising amount of combat variety present, however, it rarely felt like it was necessary to use most of it. Chaining together attacks from just the light attack button and the occasional dodge made it possible to defeat the vast majority of the enemies. Of course, as the game goes on, you're more likely to take damage using this strategy, but it was still a rather acceptable method of combat. Rarely did it feel like using a very specific attack was a better option than just mashing the attack button, which made the combat feel quite repetitive. It's a shame because each turtle has their own skill tree with a wide range of abilities, but what's the point if you don't need to use them? There was also this incredibly frustrating stop and start nature to the game. Each level would have enemies scattered throughout, which can be attacked from the get go. But each level also had set fights where a cutscene would happen and then a rating would appear after the fight. All of that is totally fine. The issue is, you can go to an area, have a 15-second cutscene, walk for 5 seconds, and then start another cutscene, even referencing the exact same thing. It was quite odd to see a beat 'em up game, a genre that works best when you continuously fight enemies, stop itself from creating any positive momentum in terms of uninterrupted gameplay. Luckily for the game, all of these instances were rather short and quick, but the sheer amount of times that it would happen was quite the sight to behold. There was also a day and night cycle that really felt important when it was introduced. However, any sense of urgency from it faded rather quickly. There always seemed to be enough spare days to complete any new tasks that arose. As a 3D platformer, it had some issues, most notably, the lack of camera control. Being able to adjust the camera in a 3D platformer just seems like a no-brainer, considering it was mostly figured out all the way back in Super Mario 64, and to exclude it in a modern game feels like something so basic and fundamental was missing. Did the game work without it? Yes, of course. The levels were designed in a way where you rarely needed to rotate the camera, however, the few times it felt necessary, its absence was noticeable. Missing a fundamental element like camera control just made it feel like certain shortcuts were taken. Speaking of level designs, technically, they weren't terrible. They were rather linear, with a very small amount of exploration in order to find some of the collectible upgrades. The bigger problem with the levels is the repetition. You will end up playing the same levels over and over and over again. Is there slight variation in them? Sure. Sometimes you'll play the exact same level, but in reverse. Sometimes you'll play it without enemies as a time trial, and sometimes you'll just play it again, and again, and again. This is the game's biggest flaw. Because of the repetitive nature of the levels, it made going through them over and over again feel routine, allowing all of the other elements of the game to take center stage and become far more noticeable. Fighting the same enemies all throughout the game can be boring, and fighting them on the exact same platform for the sixth time can be incredibly tiresome. Mutants Unleashed takes place in the same universe as the movie Mutant Mayhem, with a vast amount of returning characters, which is a good thing because if you watch the movie, then you'll want to see the recognizable faces. Although they don't have the same voice actors from the movie, the voice acting is actually decently well done. The bigger issue in this area is the dialogue. Not the delivery, but the written lines. While the movie had a similar style of dialogue, the game was never really able to capture the same feel, and the jokes fell flat. The game also had a lot of slow paced talking scenes, both in terms of too much dialogue, but also in terms of the amount of time between the lines. This doesn't seem like a voice acting issue. This seems more like an editing and directing issue, as the pace of the dialogue felt almost deliberately slow. This made any joke that didn't connect just sit in the awkward moment. The movie felt incredibly fast paced with its jokes. Even if you didn't find it funny, the dialogue in the scene just kept going, and you had way less time to process that you didn't like it. Here in the game, you had way too much time to think to yourself that you didn't find it funny, and that's not an enjoyable thing to sit through. As a continuation from the movie, the game kept the same art style. While not everyone is going to enjoy this art style, I found it to work quite well for the game. The opening menu looks amazing, and the art style helped keep the visual look of the game interesting, which was desperately needed as you return to the same locations over and over again. Sadly, however, I found the art style didn't work for one aspect, and that's specifically the turtles' design. The look of the city, the inside of the home sewers, characters like Mondo, Leatherhead, Bebop, and Rocksteady all looked great, but I really didn't like the look of the turtles themselves. I understand they're actually teenagers in this version, but there's something about them that just couldn't click with me. Aside from the story of the game, there was a small amount of side activities, from time trial missions to collecting digital creatures. It felt like the intent was to add variety to the game, but none of these aspects really felt very enjoyable. Small things like that scattered throughout the game made it feel like it was rushed. Yes, there were digital creatures to find, but it felt tedious. Yes, there were time trials, but it felt thrown together last minute. Yes, there was a day and night cycle, but it kind of felt inconsequential. I appreciate the thought, but the execution wasn't there, leading me to think one step forward, one step back. Hence, average. And there we have my thoughts on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutants Unleashed. If you enjoyed the movie and you want more from these characters, then there is some fun to be had with it, but only if you think you can ignore the repetitive nature of the game. Being called average can be a tough thing for a game, but I do want to get the point across that it's not a bad game. There's no major glitches, no major difficulty spikes, no major issues when it comes to the platforming or combat in terms of poor hitboxes. Not all games need to be created as a game of the year blockbuster. Sometimes it can be relaxing to play something with familiar characters where you can essentially zone out on autopilot and mash the attack button. If you're looking for something like that and you enjoy the Ninja Turtles franchise, then there is some fun to be found. And if you're hesitant, but you want to give it a chance, then the game is available on Xbox Game Pass, as that's where I played it. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up. It really helps out a lot. And be sure to subscribe for more video game related content. Thanks for watching.